You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast. This is the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me at official Sam Little on Instagram. There's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, and welcome to a little intro episode that I wanted to do for the Maple Footy Podcast. I just wanted to hop on and do a quick little introduction, I guess, for myself and this podcast before we really get going on these episodes. So what is the Maple Footy Podcast? And that is a great question. As I say in the intro, it's the unofficial football podcast of the North. And yes, I will be calling it football and not soccer. It just sounds better. I'm sorry. It just does. There's always so much to say and so much to talk about with so many different competitions, leagues, teams, players. Everyone has something to say, and I want to add to those conversations and hopefully give you something good and entertaining to take away from this as you listen to it all. My plan at the moment is to give you some news, opinions, recaps, retrospectives on players, specific teams, clubs, and managers, and of course add in some personal bias on the things that are happening in the world of football. Because no matter what, that'll always find a way to shine through. But yeah, news, recaps, opinions will be more frequent postings as well as the bias. Something that I think will be really exciting are the retrospectives. I want to take deep dives into teams like Spain's 2010 World Cup squad, Bayer Leverkusen from this year, Juventus the year they were relegated, just to name a few, just to really kind of dive deeper into what happened those seasons or in those tournaments, or in and around those teams, kind of talk about the star players, the manager, play style, all that stuff. I'd want to do the same for retired players like Zidane, Baggio, Maldini, and so many more legends. And what made these teams and players just so special and great and why we still talk about them today. But of course, I also need more frequent coverage, a league that I can always count on to have great talking points and consistent discussion, which is why I'll probably be covering the Premier League. It is the league I watch the most as my team does play there. It's the biggest league in the world with some of the biggest topics of conversation. Now, I don't necessarily think it's the best league in the world, but it is the biggest and the one that I follow. I will definitely get into what I think is the best league in the world at the moment, as that does always change. And the Prem has dipped in recent years, but I do think it'll obviously have its little comeback once City decide to stop winning everything. Being the Maple Footy Podcast, though, I also will be covering Canadian football, which is what I'm probably most excited about. We have such a growing football community, and as someone who has been in and around the game my entire life, I couldn't be more excited about it. So I'll be keeping up with a lot of the Canadian players like Alphonso Davies, Tajon Buchanan, Kyle Larin, Jonathan David, Alistair Johnson, just to name a few, and some of our MLS boys like Jonathan Osorio, Richie Larea, Samuel Piet, and even some CPL coverage as well, just to really promote the Canadian game. Of course, when Canada plays their international friendlies, you'll already know I'm going to be covering that too. There may be a question, though, with all these leagues coming to an end over the past week-ish, what am I going to be talking about until the season starts? I will be covering the Euros as it is the biggest football event taking place this summer. I will cover every match day's worth of games. So I won't do coverage until each team plays their games. For like, say, the first group stage, I won't cover it until everybody has played their first game, and then so on and so forth. I will also be covering exclusively Canada's Copa America run. It's their first ever time in the competition, and they will be playing Argentina, Peru, and Chile in their groups. If they go further, I'll keep covering. If they get knocked out in the groups, then that's it. And of course, as I iron things out and whatnot, I'll be able to see what you're all liking and what you want to see, because this isn't just my podcast, this is our podcast. Yeah, Canadians are supposed to like hockey, but I always preferred footy. Stick around, check this space, more content coming very, very soon. Until then, find me on Instagram at @officialsamlittle, and from there, you can find all my other socials linked. Subscribe, turn on the notifications, and let's get to work.
And that was your Maple Footy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates at @officialsamlittle on Instagram, where I am most active. And until next time, live, laugh, little.